For the sixth year in a row, minus 2020, the MLB has seen 3 or more teams lose 100-plus games, not to mention the elephant in the room in Chicago. But this trend of bottom teams losing more than ever is interesting. Just going back to the past years of 2014 to 2017, there was only one team to lose 100 games in those 4 seasons, my great Minnesota Twins. Now, why are teams losing more? I think I've dialed it down to 3 reasons as to why we are seeing this problem, with the first one being deeply rooted issue in the sport. Now, the MLB is touted for not having a real salary cap or floor, leading to the massive deals we are seeing all the time. It also leads to a group of teams wanting to spend money on players versus the teams that don't want to, and now it's creating a wider margin than ever in the league. For reference, in 2024, the top 5 teams in terms of total cap, the Dodgers, Mets, Yankees, Astros, and Phillies, have a combined $1.392 billion dedicated to their caps, while the bottom 5 teams, the A's, Rays, Tigers, Pirates, and Marlins, have their total cap come out to only $428 million, a 325% margin of difference. Pivoting back to my earlier 2014 season comment, that very season, the top 5 cap-allocated teams, the Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox, Tigers, and Phillies, had $971 million total cap, with the bottom 5 teams, Marlins, Astros, Pirates, Rays, and Guardians, had $340 million, a 285% margin of difference. So the margin of difference has grown by 40% in 10 seasons. Yes, it doesn't seem like much, but growth is still growth nonetheless. The spending difference between teams will keep getting worse over the years unless the league does something to upend this movement. To combat bigger teams outspending smaller teams, the MLB did introduce a luxury tax or competitive balance tax in 1997, and the tax has served, over the years, as a soft salary cap. Nevertheless, this tax hasn't stopped those big market teams from overspending no matter what rate the MLB taxes them at. For reference, a record 9 teams exceeded the 2024 threshold of $237 million by a combined $311 million, which is also a record for most fines paid. So since bigger teams keep overspending this limit, and smaller market teams are hardly spending at all, what can the league implement? Does the league adopt a structure such as the NBA, where they still implement a luxury tax while also having a salary cap and floor? Or does the league use the NFL salary cap system, where they eliminate the luxury tax altogether and just use a hard cap, meaning teams cannot exceed over that set amount? I'm not saying the MLB should go all in for a salary cap either, as it would be too hard to implement at the current state of the league, and the Players Association wouldn't buy it. What I am not opposed to, though, is having a salary floor in place. This would make small market teams actually invest into their ball club to be above the floor and not face potential penalties. Even saying a floor of just half the luxury tax threshold isn't that crazy. For 2024, it would have only affected the bottom 10 teams. Now yes, to an extent, teams don't need to spend money to be good in the MLB, with the Tampa Bay Rays being the poster child for this scenario. However, evidence suggests spending money leads to winning. This chart from 538.com shows the relationship between spending and win percentage in 10-year windows. Each team season is a dot on the figure, and the red line represents the general relationship of spending and performance of each team. The line gets steeper going left to right, implying that in recent seasons, jumps in salary have been associated with larger gains in win percentage, and meaning more money generally means more wins. In the last 10 World Series, the winner has been in the top half of the league for spending, minus the Astros in 2017, but we know their ring doesn't count, with even 8 out of 10 being in the top 10. So spending can, and usually does, lead to championships. Top teams are seeing this opportunity of smaller teams not spending money and are getting the pick of any free agent out of the bunch that they want because they're competing against maybe 6 to 10 other teams when it comes to free agency. Heck, my great Minnesota Twins finished 82-80, and what did they do to improve? They got Harrison Bader, Ty France, and Daniel Klum. Man, am I ready for a 70-win season. And 2024 is really the first time we have seen a super team in a long time, and it's due to one thing. Big teams are willing to spend more on players because $50 million for the Dodgers and $50 million for the Rays are 2 totally different numbers in the MLB landscape. Problem number 2 is sort of derived from this problem number 1, but it's the fact that owners want to be as profitable as possible in the sport. The MLB has seen the league grow massively the past couple of seasons, even hitting a record $12.1 billion in revenue for the 2024 season, so owners are doing good. I want to look at the year 2002 quick, because here's where the league introduced the more modern revenue sharing model we know of today. This model in 2002 consisted of teams having to send 34% of their net local revenue into a league pool. Today, this percentage is now up to 48%, where all proceeds are thrown together and where each team receives 3.3% of the total sum generated, meaning teams would receive around $110 million a year or more from their base revenue sharing. It also helps that recently in 2002, new national TV deals with the MLB expanded teams' pockets, where teams are now also receiving $60 million each season, plus what their local TV deals include. But we also can't forget for the smaller teams that receive supplemental revenue sharing. Big markets, unfortunately for them, are the ones that don't get to receive, rather give more of their revenue to smaller markets. A term, performance factor, creates positive, negative, or neutral numbers based on a bunch of calculations according to the CBA, but I'm a little too stupid to explain it all. In 2013, yeah, I know a little outdated, it shows teams and their performance factor. 11 teams had to be a payer, with 16 being payees, and 3 had a neutral 0%. So these 16 teams in 2013 got to receive extra revenue sharing because of their lack of contribution to the base revenue sharing pool. The crazy part is, Tampa Bay in 2023 got to receive an extra $30 million from this supplemental revenue sharing system, while they fielded a payroll of just $74 million. Rays ownership in 2023 took home revenue of $301 million with everything I mentioned prior, plus a whole host of other income streams. Just taking out payroll, they are still left with $227 million to cover what other expenses they may have. Just crazy. Now where does this extra new all-time high revenue go, you may ask? Well, I think just back into the owners' pockets. Just look at the year 2017 with the Pittsburgh Pirates. In 17, their team payroll on Spotrac was $100.5 million. Next year in 18 was down to $91 million. Doesn't sound crazy, just $9 million less. The thing is though, the Pirates didn't even sign anyone in the 2017 offseason. This led to then, in February of 2018, the MLB PA filed revenue-sharing grievances against not only the Pirates, but Marlins, A's, and Rays, accusing the teams of failing to appropriately spend revenue-sharing money. What did these grievances lead to? Well, I couldn't find the final outcome, but by March of 2019, over a year after those grievances were filed, it was still ongoing, according to MLB PA Executive Director Tony Clark. So these small market teams and owners don't seem to face too many consequences when it comes to not improving the team or not spending their supplemental revenue. Even in the CBA, it requires each club shall use its revenue sharing receipts in an effort to improve its performance on the field. But yeah, that isn't the case, and besides, it's a wide umbrella for what teams fit under improved on-field performance. Say a team fielded a bunch of young players on their 26-man, and they improved from 60 wins to 63. That's improvement, no? Because that's the key with most small market owners. They bank on young players to keep under team control for upwards of 7 years before a big contract is needed, while those owners' pockets get deeper. On the flip side, big market teams don't care about their spending, or so you think. Most big teams will spend, but they do it strategically. The Dodgers have committed over $1 billion on Japanese players just within these past 2 off-seasons. This investment into the team makes the Dodgers the de facto team of the entirety of Japan. Potentially 125 million fans. Not bad profitability if you ask me. Yet unlike the big market teams, most of these small market owners make it blatantly obvious they don't actually care how well their teams do, as long as their profit margins fit their pockets guidelines. In all reality, the MLB is a business, and for some ownerships, their sole purpose is to maximize profits, as they shouldn't expect to lose money. The last problem to me is the introduction of the MLB Draft Lottery. One of the largest changes in the last CBA was the introduction of the lottery for all 18 teams that didn't make the playoffs, where the top 6 picks would be selected through a combination of ping pong balls to determine what teams would be there, with worse teams having higher odds. The rest of the lottery order then falls in line with pre-lottery odds. This was the supposed solution to combat teams tanking, with the idea that teams would be spending more, as they're not guaranteed a top pick. With this new lottery in place though, this pairs with our problem number 2 of teams receiving or giving revenue sharing payouts. Based on the CBA agreement, a large market team cannot pick in the lottery for 2 consecutive years, and a smaller market team which receives revenue money cannot pick in the lottery for 3 consecutive years. I'm going to be using the example of the Chicago White Sox's 2025 draft. They had one of the worst seasons ever, but since they selected 5th last year's draft and were a team in 2024 that gave rather than received revenue sharing dollars, they are not allowed to have consecutive lottery picks. This is the reason as to why they are now picking no higher than 10th in the first round. It is tough for the White Sox as they are considered a big market team, yet have never really spent like one, especially these past couple of seasons. Staying on the White Sox, as they were set up to fall in the draft order ahead of the 2025 draft, This not only hurts the caliber of player they'd be able to take if they were higher in the draft, it also hurts the overall amount the team can spend in the draft, which impacts the entire thought process when selecting players. In terms of the money a team can spend on those picks, the top pick, for instance, in the 2023 draft had a slot allotment of $9.72 million, the 6th pick was $6.63 million, more than $3 million less, and the 10th pick was slotted at $5.48 million, or roughly $1 million less than the 6th pick. The White Sox will have a smaller draft pool to spend with the 10th overall pick than they would have had with a top 3 selection. This deters more frugal owners to opt for draft savings through the first 10 rounds instead of taking the best rated talent. It's just odd to me that some teams get a quote-unquote hall pass to tank for longer than others. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Rockies fans. Another issue with the MLB's current lottery, in my opinion, is the amount of teams involved in this event. 18 teams is too many to be able to move into the top 6. Just as an example, the Reds last year in the 2024 draft were an above 500 ball team slated to get the 14th pick, but rose all the way up to the 2nd overall pick. I get that this is the exact reason that MLB implemented this lottery, and that teams that tried to win got a chance of selecting higher, which in turn knocks down teams that didn't try to. I think the reality is that in the end, these small market teams usually finding themselves in this now lottery situation will just keep doing what they find feasible, no matter where they end up selecting. This lottery feels like the league had good intentions, but just terrible execution. Now these 3 problems are the most glaring issues to me and many other baseball fans. However, the few suggestions I laid out aren't going to solve them, as these are very complex issues with no real dead set solutions. Yet seeing more teams than ever pass the 100-loss threshold, with the combination of the playing field becoming skewed toward teams with financial luxury, is something fans don't want to see as a continued occurrence. If you have some thoughts on what changes need to be made, or what I should have included, leave a comment down below. At some point though, the MLB will have to realize the issue they have on their hands, but that's a problem for another day. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, the subscribe button, and hitting the bell notifications. Thank you.